Hello and welcome back to my feature episode, Champagne Channeling. I know it's been a couple weeks, but I do have to say it was well worth the wait because today's guest is somebody that has been such an inspiration in this work for me. I actually found him a couple years ago and he said one thing, and I will share that with you, or he will share that with you here in a couple moments. But first, I would love to introduce Gordon Smith.
Thank you so
Hello.
much, Jenny. It's an absolute pleasure to be here sharing this moment with you. And I really can't wait to just chat away and see what happens.
Yes, we've become quite good at that, haven't we?
We have indeed, yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, Gordon Smith is one of the world's most renowned evidential spiritual mediums. He has dabbled in many things. He was a barber. He has been on a TV show. Is that correct?
Several TV shows, yes.
Okay,
Many,
there we go.
many
See, I haven't done
actually.
my research. I haven't done all my research. But I knew intuitively in my gut the first time I heard you speak, Gordon, was on an Audible recording, I think, via podcast. I'm not quite sure. And you said one specific thing that was like him. That's who I want to allow to influence me on this journey because there are so many limitations. To me, there are so many lies and there are a lot of fear around communicating with spirit. And you said that there are no dark spirits.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to
Um,
elaborate on that a little bit?
yeah, Jenna, I've been involved with this practically all of my life, or as much of my life as I can recall. Because when people say, oh, you're born as a medium, well, you're not conscious of your life until you're a particular age. So as a child, at some point, I was awakened to a spiritual world. And from that day to this, and I'm now 60, I've never encountered anything bad or evil or dark within the spirit world. So I'm talking from experience, it's not theory. And if you're as open as I have been to the spirit world since childhood till now, then surely if there was any kind of malevolent force, you'd go for something that was that open. And what I've learned over the years is to qualify that also is that a lot of the, well, all of the fear occurs in the mind of any person, and that fear grows into something. But because I learned to develop with a wonderful, solid teacher, Mrs. Jean Primrose, who taught us the basics, the foundation of how to clear our mind. So your mind was not full of fear before you opened up to the spirit world. Your mind was full of joy, full of hope. So your mind was reaching to that beautiful spiritual light. So for me, this is why I never encounter bad news. I never encounter bad anything, because not because I live in some weird euphoric world. It's not because of that, but it's because my own mind and intentions has been set to a much higher frequency before I begin. I'm never pulled down by fear. I'm lifted by the hope and potential that the spirit world are going to connect with me.
So beautiful. I love that. I love it so much. And I just went over to England for my first venture and it was an absolute dream. It was hard to leave. I actually got emotional and cried, not only because of England and how connected I felt to the land. And I know I'm talking to a Scot, so
That's okay.
um but your training, being around
Mm,
so many like-minded people, I
yeah,
don't know how many, but it felt like 75 or 80 people. And I
yeah,
felt so accepted. I felt so seen. I felt like I was around people that I'd been searching for my whole life.
yeah,
And somebody had asked you, are there entities? Are there dark things that
yeah,
attach to you? And I loved your answer because that kind of extends on this conversation because people do walk around in
yeah,
fear and they're
yeah.
wondering, well, why do I feel this way? Or why does somebody say, oh, you had an entity attached to you, which
I know.
I've had to self-teach myself that is my own darkness and my own
Yeah,
internal healing to address.
absolutely, Jen, because part of my job, part of your job, if we work for Spirit World, is to help people to lift up and elevate beyond fear. Because fear is probably the greatest cancer known to humankind.
Mhm.
There's no cancer more potent, no pandemic more vivid than fear. it can affect all of us, and does at some point if you live long enough. But the whole idea of it connecting with a spiritual world means immediately spiritual world itself is a divine part of us. You don't need to die to become a spirit. You are a living spirit in this world, but you're pulled down by your emotional disabilities, and they in themselves create characteristics, sort of potential negative fears and thoughts that can actually lead you down many dark avenues of your own life. But just by this simple practice of learning how to meditate, learning how to heal yourself, learning how to care for others and have compassion, immediately changes the dial on your radio set. You're
Mm.
picking up a higher frequency. So you don't even see this idea of bad spirits or attachments. I have a standard answer for that when someone says, "What do you think about attachments?" And I say, "Well, they normally come with emails. Other than that, I have no idea what you're talking about."
Oh, that I do agree with that. I do. When I first started this work, I had specific people tell me things, and I have a lot of listeners that are developing, whether it's them just, developing how to manage their empath nature, or if they are actually trying to make a career out of mediumship.
Yeah.
But I do feel that there's a lot of lies out there. Like, somebody told me never to burn sage because it will attract Native American spirits. They didn't know I was part Native American. I was like, well, shit, I might just be trying to
Wow.
attract my
Your own
ancestors.
ancestors.
Just certain things. And one of the
Yeah.
questions that came through was, do you think that certain foods or drinks will affect ability to communicate to spirit? Which I kind of laugh as I'm saying that, but that's a question I'd love for you to
No.
answer.
No, and I say this both from experience and also out of respect for spirit, because all my life, as a Scotsman, we were brought up to respect when we drink alcohol. Scotch is our native drink, and we see it as part of, in many ways, a toast. It's a celebration. It marks a moment in life. So it's a ritualistic thing if you're Scottish. When my brother died, we were all drinking champagne, and we stopped when we heard he died. And we all went for a scotch, a whiskey. And that was the toast to send him home. So there's something more than just drinking alcohol. There was, there's certain things. But one of the things that I learned years ago, Jenny, was the spirit world will work with us better when we feel happier. So whatever you do that makes you happy and yourself, that brings contentment, whether that be eating particular foods or drinking, then that is what you should do. If your being is telling you, I'm happy because of what I'm doing, and it shouldn't be up for question. There's no right way. There's not a diet that can make you a better medium. There isn't. I've worked with mediums who have gone vegan overnight because they felt that was something that they felt they wanted to do. It made them miserable. It made them sad. And in actual fact, it doesn't affect your mediumship, but it does affect you.
Yeah.
So you have to find something that's balanced. If you like a drink of alcohol, whether it's champagne or anything, do it till it makes you happy. If it goes beyond that, then you're out of balance. So
Yep.
everything within the bounds of who you are and what makes you happy. And I don't think people should go around ordering others as in what to do. What works for me, but it may not work for you. But I always give people the freedom to say, find what works for you. Find
Mhm.
what makes you feel better as a person, and go with that. And that's your way.
Yes. And now that you said that, I mean, this is champagne channeling, so I might
Oh, hello.
I see you have some bubbles there.
Ding dong, yes.
I love celebration. I think celebration has a fine line
I
to
do.
gratitude, and gratitude is how we manifest. And so I think champagne has always been a drink of choice, but there have been times where I've overindulged and then I'm not happy the next morning. So I do have to take care of
Well,
myself.
that in itself is a good metaphor for life, because we can enjoy anything to a degree, but sometimes we overdo it because we like it so much.
Yes.
And then we realize too much of anything will bring me out of my balance. Wow, you popped your cork, dear.
Excuse me. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
so
so
I
happy to
like
have you
that.
here. I'm just so happy to have you here. I'm
Oh,
in
it's
so
lovely
much
to be
joy.
here. It feels natural and nice. It doesn't feel in any way forced. It feels good.
Good. Well, may I cheers you, Gordon?
Cheers, darling.
Oh,
Cha-ching. Ding.
so
Nice.
not only did I have it on my manifesting, I'm always manifesting. I don't think I'll ever stop. I always have
No.
somebody ask me, because I've overcome a lot of diversities. I think you knew that from the first time you saw me
Sure.
in Salinas. But it came out of my mouth. It was probably spirit speaking, honestly. And they're like, how did you create this life for yourself? And I said, I've always chosen my dreams over my current situation
Yeah.
without abandoning gratitude. So I've
Yes.
always been so grateful for where I'm at, but I've never abandoned my dreams. And
Mhm.
I've almost given more attention to my dreams because it's exciting. It's something to celebrate when they're constantly occurring.
Yeah.
And you were one of my manifestations, my dreams. And it truly was to have champagne with you. It's like I bypassed training, I bypassed being influenced by the most,
Straight to champagne.
talented
I
medium
like it.
as we know. And I just wanted to have champagne with you.
Well, I think one of the lovely things is when you're on this journey, and in the early days, you try to assess people and you wonder if you're mixing with the right people. Are they right for me? Am I right for them? Am I learning from them? Are they learning? All of this stuff goes through your head. And there comes a moment when none of that is really important, where you just meet another person and within seconds you feel, wow. And then there's no need for anything. You just know. And
Yeah.
I think that was what was lovely. I know the first time I saw you was in California, and with James Van Prague. And as soon as you arrived, and I said, "Oh wow, we have something out of Hollywood," because you looked so stunning. But it was that classic Hollywood that I love. And James said the same. He said, "What a beautiful lady!" And he said, "And I mean her energy." I said, "Absolutely." And we both felt immediately that we wanted to be close to you. Like, wow. And then meeting you in the UK, you just became part of our spiritual family. There was not even a need for any even great introduction or get it. Just your energy, or the group's energy, just became one.
It did.
That's special. But that's just knowing. And
Yes.
and your dreams, Jenny, never give up your dreams. As I say, I have now reached my 6th decade in this world, and I'm really happy to see that it gets better.
Mhm.
And I don't even try to manifest things in my life. They've now, dreams I had when I was younger are just now starting to mature. And I forgot I'd asked for them, but they're
Yeah.
turning up. It's like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
this is happening, that is happening. And it's just because I trust. When you
Yeah. And
trust, that's
I think you taught, you're teaching me so much, but we had a conversation the other day where you said, I said, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? And you said, walking in the hills with my dogs
yeah.
and watching
Oh
the
yeah.
sunrise. Like that's how
Oh
simple
yeah.
it becomes.
Yeah. And it really is that simple, because there's a while in your life, a point in your life where you assume that all your dreams are out there and all your aspirations are far away from you. And you should never see your dreams as far away from you. And that's why it's good to recognize the true fulfillment of the life that you're in, whatever it is.
Yes.
Now, a lady said to me, I just come back from Japan, and I sat with a very, without naming the lady, but a very important person in that country. Her life has been such, born into something very high and noble, and that's how she's come through her life. She said to me, Gordon, you sound so spiritual. And I said, do I? I don't try to. And she said, but I look at me and what, have I got good karma or bad karma? And I said, well, my love, you don't just arrive in a life like yours if you've been bad. You have created something before somewhere that has given you the right of passage to where you are. I said, now just don't muck it up. Now use it for something beautiful.
Yes.
And she said, oh, right. And I said, honestly, and I said, and don't do it to please people, do it to please you. I said, what's your dream? And she said, I really do want to help other people. I want to reward good people. And I said, then go do it. Don't think about it. I said, and that's why your karma brought you into the position that you're in. Use it for good, and you will double your karmic bank balance in a moment. Not even because you want to, but because you will. And it's so true.
Oh, yes, it absolutely is. There's two things that led me to think about. And one, I think to survive here on planet Earth, my belief is we had to be raised under a masculine patriarchy, because
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
is how we learn to exist. We learn to
Yeah.
use the land, we think, and we're moving into more feminine energetics. Those are going to be
Definitely.
abused, just like they were abused in the masculine, and men
Absolutely.
and women abuse both. But what it is it's getting us into our hearts. And truly, people always want to know their purpose. And it's like, do what lights you up, do what your heart's
Yes.
expression is, do where you find what finds joy. And if abundance is in your desire, it will follow. Some people don't
Yeah.
really care for financial wealth. It doesn't appease
No.
them. But if it is in your consciousness, it's already part of the plan. You just
Yeah.
have to find what's blocking it.
And this is it, because abundance is more a concept than anything else. Because to some people, abundance is nothing. And to others, nothing is abundance. So it's how we view it. And therefore, I looked through my life and thought that I didn't know. Now I can see it from this distance, this point that I've reached. I had an abundance of opportunities. And when
Mm.
I was growing up, I didn't see them as opportunities. I saw them as hurdles. Now I look and think, wow, had I not climbed that hurdle, I wouldn't have been here to see that. Did I not get over that hurdle? Would this not have made sense? And that. So now I look at it and think, these weren't difficulties, these were opportunities. So your life is full of things that maybe you don't understand the plan until you reach the point where you can look down from a higher point of perspective and think, oh, wow, that was all laid out for me. None of this was an accident. And I actually followed my dream, which was to climb over these difficulties and turn them into joys, turn them into advantages, turn them into potential for something brilliant. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what I've done. So you cannot help but be happy in yourself when you see that you've come through a journey that you probably planned long before you came here, and it's working out okay.
Mhm. And with you, I mean, I don't know this about you, but I feel it. I feel it about you. You probably have had your fair share of adversities
Yeah,
and heartache and things, but do you think
yeah,
those things have also assisted you with your ability to be such an amazing medium?
every single one.
Okay.
Um, because you need to feel pain in you in order to register it or recognize it in
Hmm.
another.
Hmm.
So you need to have depths of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is just like our own intelligence, academic intelligence. You have to study for it. So
Yeah.
you study at the University of Life on how to understand pain, not to keep getting pain, but to understand how to work with it and appreciate it
Hmm.
and recognize it as another part of you. So we
Yes.
don't hide the pain. We allow it to occur as it should, and we work through it with it and turn it into something else. You know,
Hmm.
it's only through losing people close to me that I can truly understand the depth of grief when I sit with somebody who's just lost somebody so close to them.
Hmm.
And that's what you draw on as a comparison. That's what you draw on as a battery to pull in the energy. Feel your own pain and let that serve you now to heal somebody else's. So nothing is wasted. It's just energy, and you make it good or bad.
Yeah. I'm having a thought that's coming through right now that I want to share for the listeners. And
Mm,
I always talk in analogies, but let's just pretend we're in, a school and Gordon is the principal and he knows about all the levels of what his students are learning. I feel like mediumship is making a big boom right now because people are awakening to their sensitivities, but not everybody is going to be the principal. And I like to say I'm like the kindergarten teacher of the spirit world because I go right to the heart chakra. I go to inner child work. I go to helping people connect with the spirit within. Have I communicated to spirit outside of me and outside of them? Absolutely. Is it light me up? No, because why would we have conversations with those outside of us,
mm,
outside the body, if we can't even connect to the spirit within?
yes,
So developing mediums understand that maybe it's not all of our jobs to be the most evidential medium. Maybe we're going to have a niche. Maybe we're going to attract people we can serve in certain areas. Does that resonate at all with you?
100%.
Okay.
I started my journey and my development with mediums who it was their purpose in their lives to give real evidence, hard-hitting, very quick evidence, names, addresses, when you lived, when you died, boom, 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 boom. So I was brought up in that school of learning. So these were mediums who worked during the Second World War who trained me. So the world was in devastation then. So if you imagine the desperation of people who were losing and not even knowing sometimes, had I lost my son? Is he dead? Is he alive? He's somewhere in Europe. And these mediums were trained in a way to actually go to the heart of that. Your son's Major Robert Graham, he died on the 5th of April, da-di-da, on the battlefield of Culloden or something. And then, that told people something because they needed to hear it hard like that. As I've grown, Jen, I found my own mediumship is starting to change. And I feel that the mediums who are coming into it now, it has to change. It's not the same vibration that the mediums who trained me worked in. People now have a different level of desperation. The pandemic just showed us that people having to look within, they're frightened to look at themselves now. So just exactly what you said, mediums are required to go in and help people within. So what I would say, like what you've just mentioned, for you, you're an emotional lifeguard. To me, you're an emotional lifeguard. So you learn to go into the emotional waters and pull people out, rescue them from
Yes.
themselves.
Mhm.
It's such an important job. You're an emotional lifeguard. You don't get in the water with them, you pull them out so that you're there to save them. And I think mediumship is going that way today, and so it should. It has to get away from the spiritualism type thing, the
Mhm.
old way of looking at it, that it's a scary thing. It's not. It's a living thing.
Yes.
And we need to put that light on and show people, don't be afraid of all this nonsense you're hearing. Embrace the love that it brings, the
Mhm.
change that it offers you, and the opportunity to be the better version of you. That's what we're trying to do for people.
Yeah. Uh, as you're saying that, it makes me, the conversation keeps going back to this, but I like to teach a lot of the people I work with experience over evidence. Evidence
Absolutely.
is the masculine. Evidence wants facts.
Yeah.
Evidence wants names. Evidence wants proof. Evidence wants statistics. And what does experience want? Feelings. And so if
Yes.
you're able to deliver messages and you say one word that makes their body get covered in chills because of the
Yeah.
feeling and that they know, it's equally as important in healing as
Yes.
the address that they grew up, the home,
Absolutely. And that's what I've learned, that for mediums like me, I do less and less as I get older, and I'm happy to report that, because I feel my type of mediumship gets drawn out now and again to perform,
yeah.
stand on a stage in front of thousands of people and do it one more time, and which is lovely, and I have fun with that, and I love my position in that, my role. But I also realize more nowadays I'm teaching people about feelings, rather than evidence. So like you say, I even see that my own spirit guides are channeling a different level of teaching. It's more ascended,
Hmm.
but it needs to be. So that is more ascended, but it can actually reach deeper into the soul of a person,
Yeah.
because it's coming from that higher height, can reach a deeper depth. And that's where a lot of people are stuck. So many people are on what I call the dream stream. They don't even look up, they don't come up for air. They have no mindfulness of where they are in the world. And
Hmm.
it's your type of mediumship you've just described that can actually offer them a window into their own world,
Hmm.
instead of hiding somewhere in the depth of themselves, the child that has never grown up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you're going. And there's so many people today who are just adult children, not yet ready to accept their adulthood, or not even their spirituality, where they are
Hmm.
as a spirit.
Hmm.
They've not come
Yeah.
out yet. So it's a
Yeah.
coming out, yeah.
The
Closeted
study of
spiritual beings.
trauma, there's so
Yeah,
much study of trauma coming up, and the nervous system and how we respond, and I do
absolutely.
think it's at some point when trauma becomes too overwhelming, there's a choice, and you abandon the body or you abandon the soul, and we
Yeah,
came here to have a union, and
yeah,
so I can tell who's abandoned the soul and I can tell
yeah.
who's abandoned the body because I've done both.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that makes such sense to me. Over the years, I used to often wonder, so why then do some mediums need to be that sort of hard hitting and evidential?
Mm.
And I only look at my own life's experience, because there's many, many books out there could tell me things, but the experience, as you said, because it causes a feeling.
Mhm.
So, I mean, an example was a woman who came to see me when I was a hairdresser, and she asked, "Would you talk to me with the other thing you do?" I said, "The what?" She said, "The thing you do." And I said, "Oh, the mediumship." So I said, "Okay, madam, if you don't mind waiting till we're closed, almost closing time." I sat with this lady. I'd never met her in my life, and I explained what mediumship may happen. This may occur. So we sat, and in seconds, and I said to you, "You were lying on a couch, a sofa, and the doorbell rang, and you went to the doorbell, but you felt something was wrong even before you got there, and you knew it." And I said, "But when you opened the door and you saw two police officers standing, you left your body, and you've never gone back." And this woman just looked at me, and I said, "Everything in your life is on a 5-second delay. You're not there. You're not totally present." And she said, she kind of nodded. And I said, "No, you came here today because you were lying on the same sofa and your television was playing, and you watched something on television that made you come here." And I said, "And all right," I said, "John Patrick's here." And he said, "Mum, it was me who told you to watch that thing." He says, "And
Mm.
this is the man." And this is exactly what happened. And the woman jumped like this. She quite literally jumped back into her body, and she started to shake. It was like this incredible awakening. So to witness it visually and feel it in the room with her, and she was like, "Oh my God," because I could feel my voice was changing almost into her son's for a moment. And she jumped quite literally. But it was the most incredible thing. She
Yeah.
kind of came back into her body without re-entry shields. She just burnt through her own atmosphere. And it was like a psychic shock to her. And she was looking round. And we ended up, we spoke for a while, and she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe what's just happened.
Yeah.
I haven't even felt the grief because I was here. I was
Mhm.
beside myself with grief, quite literally beside myself with grief." And she hadn't got, just as you say, some people leave. She left the body on the news of the death of her son, and she
Yeah.
came back into the body the moment she felt it was really her son who was still actually there with her. And therein lies some of the importance of learning and knowing about mediumship and the potential it has to jumpstart people who have gone out to bring
Yeah.
them back.
Absolutely. I have like chills all over. And I think that's probably why breath work is making such a comeback as well. And you
Indeed.
watch people that really do it, they start shaking. And
Yes.
that now, even with that story, it's a union. You're coming
Yes.
back. Whatever is
We really
happening,
are.
the
Yeah.
soul can get, or the spirit, or whatever you want to call it, gets back
Yeah.
into the body when the body is safe enough. And
Yeah.
trauma stays in the body. The soul's fine.
Yeah. Do you know there's so
Wow.
many people I've watched over the years who have become vacant after a death of a close loved one. What I now realize is it's not that they're vacant, they're just not completely present in their body. Their body became too difficult a pain to carry. So the soul stepped aside. As I say, when I had first heard that term, she was beside herself with grief. Now I understand it. She truly was beside herself with grief. She wasn't in herself. And
Hmm.
I realized that a lot of the work that mediums, different types of healers, and people really genuinely want to serve to help people in that state. Our job is to try and rearrange the frequency, to kind of, if you like, restart it so that the body and mind and soul become one again, that they're not
Yeah.
disjointed.
Yeah.
And
Like
and and
jumper
I
cables. You need
yeah,
that jumper
I,
cable, like,
I
ah,
call it psychic shock.
yeah. I was
Psychic
raised with
shock.
brothers.
But
Oh.
it's a fascinating thing. The same thing can be done through meditative practices. You can
Mhm.
bring somebody back slowly through different types of therapy, even, or
Yeah.
whatever. It may take longer, but I don't suppose it matters what people do as long as their good intentions are set to heal and help the people they're working with.
Mm.
If you're coming from a good place, the right place, then I think whatever your technique is, you should actually be proud of that. And you don't need to be, "Oh, that person does it this way, this person does it that way." If you do it the way that it works, then that's the right way for you. It's not for
Absolutely.
question.
I tell people the only mentor you actually ever need is your highest self. And I think the
Absolutely.
answers for you are within you, but we're taught to always look outside of
Yeah.
us externally. And that's just part of the pendulum swing right now from masculine to feminine, is we're starting to question, and it will eventually come back to center, and we will utilize the masculine and the feminine in whatever way serves the union of the body and the soul.
I think that's why even just the way, if you look at sexuality just now in the world, the way it's all over the place, and it is quite literally is out of balance, and I think a lot of people are not sure of where their vibe is, where their frequency is. So they're identifying with what they feel right now, but it might change within a week. And it's all masculine and feminine trying to find its own place in the being.
Yeah.
And
I think we're
it's,
both.
well, yet at some point we'll realize that.
Yes.
And it doesn't actually matter what that side of it. It matters to you as an individual when you're going through that transformation. And
Yeah.
it really is a transformation. But I think this is where the world is a little bit kind of out of sync right now with the whole sexual identification of beings, is
Mhm.
because there's a crossover, as you say, from masculine to feminine. And the transition won't be completely smooth and easy. And there'll be things that happen that highlight, you know, the difference between masculine and feminine until it all balances and we realize neither masculine nor feminine has a dominance. It needs an equality,
Mm.
perfect harmony. And I
Yes.
think that's where we're going, and that's a good thing. It just means there'll be a few bumps, but you know,
Yeah, it's a little
so
painful
what?
now
It's going to get better.
for
Yeah.
our children growing up with this inner war. But I've always thought, like, they say the spectrum, and on even like children coming in with ADHD or
Oh yeah.
everything, they're labeling everyone, and really these children are brilliant and so awake and
Yeah.
so sensitive to the energies that they're not quite responding to the human experience the way that we have been, which is a good thing, but also painful.
Well, if you bring in a child that's already kind of working on a higher frequency, then the physical world becomes abrasive.
Mhm.
And there's where you get your ADH stuff and, you know, all this kind of hyper stuff. And it's quite literally hyper. If you think that a spiritual vibration is faster,
Mhm.
so they're bringing in a faster vibration. And this world, they don't know how to kind of, you know, connect and find the cohesion of mind and body and spirit at the moment. So though people will say, oh, these children are, you know, they are not, they have learning difficulties, or they have too much, whether it be autism, they're so exact in their thinking at certain moments. But in actual fact, it's a vibrational thing. They've come into a world that itself is out of sync. They are in sync, but not with the world they've just been born into. So the physical world becomes so harsh and abrasive to the new generation. It will balance, and great minds are being born, bringing in wonderful new revelations for the future. And that's why I don't worry about the future for this world at the moment. I have no problem with this world. I feel as though it's going exactly as it should. People should stop being so frightened about it and start enjoying it.
Yeah. Amen to
Mm,
that. I'm actually
yeah.
going to drink to that statement.
Yeah, well, why not?
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah, I think one thing that if you are realizing your sensitivities and waking up, and honestly, if you're listening to that, I know that you are, or this, it turn off the news. Like, stop participating in
Yeah.
fear. Stop participating in anything that tells you you're not safe.
Well, I think the lesson we've learned with the news over the pandemic episode, you know, every day I watched, when I did watch in the early days, my television set and numbers were going up, numbers constantly going up of cases of COVID. And it was all this percentage stuff. Now, I studied statistics as a young guy, and I looked and I said, not once have they ever shown the top figure here from the population of the world, because that would make that figure that I'm seeing on my television 0.00000001. Nothing to be frightened of. But as long as you leave the top figure out. So I realized very quickly, this is bad reporting. This
Mhm.
is reporting to cause chaos, so that it works us into a frenzy to be scared, so that we'll do what we're told. And maybe that was the idea, so that people don't think openly and challenge it. Just get on with getting into a lockdown till we see what's going. I think the powers that be didn't really know what was going. So the best way was to control us, was make us scared.
Yeah.
I look at it, and I even yesterday, Jenna, I looked at the headlines on my phone, just for a moment to see what's occurring. Oh, I don't need to look at that nonsense anymore. And the first thing it was so apparent was they gave a situation in the country, in our country here in the UK, things are going up something like £2,000 a month, something. And then when I read beneath it, the increase wasn't £2,000. The increase was something like £90. Nothing that scary. So they use the big banner to scare you with a big number. But when you look beneath it and you think, that's not that bad. So
Mhm.
obviously those kind of organizations are trying to get the populations around the world to be kind of apprehensive, frightened, so that we'll do what we're told when the time comes, if we need to be,
Yeah.
so that we won't be unruly. But again, what that tells me is what my heart tells me every day when I wake up. It's okay. This world's absolutely fine. So when you start listening to your heart and don't let your brain get too, emulsified in all this knowledge, take a breath. And sometimes,
Mhm.
taking a break from worrying will do you one good thing. It'll give you perspective back. And if you're
Mhm.
thinking too much, stop, take a breath and get perspective of where you are.
Yeah.
And then the world's okay.
Put your hand on your heart and honor your experience over evidence, because that's all you got. And you will know, your body will
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
And I love when you talked about, I think it was actually a class I had taken on Zoom with you and James Van Prague before
Oh,
Encinitas.
yeah.
It was like, yeah. And somebody had asked how to develop your mediumship. And one of you guys answered so quick about, you have to spend time with yourself. You have to
Yes.
get to know you,
Yeah.
or you're not going to know anyone else, whether they have a body or not. Can you talk
Mm.
about that a moment?
Well, yeah, because for me, mediumship was apparent in my life even as a young guy. It was always somehow there. And my teacher, when I went into my first class at the age of 21, my teacher, Mrs. Primrose, had said to me, Gordon, I want you to just sit and meditate. And people were getting to give messages, and I kept thinking, why am I not doing that? Why am I not being taught that? And I would get in this meditation class, and you know, going into my own head was a very busy place then. There was so much going on, and I was trying to work out the world and solve the world and heal the world. And wow, I was everything. I was all things to all people, and yet I was nothing to me. And I realized after about 3 years of this stuff, and I thought, when are you going to teach me mediumship? And she said, oh, I can't teach you that. You've already got that. I said, well, what are you teaching me? She says, to be a better version of you, to
Mm.
know you. Forget the mediumship. That's part of you. Now find you. Then we can start doing mediumship. But it can only come when you are at one with yourself. Then you'll be the best you can be. So I sat for 7 years in all with her, and getting to know me, because the one person that needed to believe in this more than the people I would tell was me.
Yeah.
If you don't truly believe in what you're doing, if you don't love it, then you're uncertain, and uncertain facts may come through you. So Mrs. Primrose taught me and the other mediums who, like my friend Sandra, whom you met as well, wonderful Sandra, we are so certain, we don't have doubt. Our belief is beyond doubt, beyond reasonable doubt. We know there's a spirit world. We are a part of it now. We identify with that more than anything else, because it's where we came from, it's where we are, it's where we're going. It's just a journey through it. But you need to know who you are in the middle of it. Knowing lots of stuff can
Yeah.
just confuse you.
Hmm.
Not needing to know lots of stuff will ground you,
Yeah.
and it'll ground you in this world. And if you've got good grounding, yet your heart wants to fly, so you're in a good place. You're between two worlds. And
Yes.
that means you can navigate through both with a lot of ease.
Yeah. And there's something to be said too when you start this journey of getting to know yourself. When you are really communicating with the spirit within,
Mm,
it's it's calm, it's all
yeah.
knowing, it's very neutral. And when you're getting to know the body that you haven't paid attention to for a while, that feels like chaos. That feels
Yeah.
like disruption. That feels
Yes.
like anxiety. And so be aware that the spirit really does feel neutral. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't put it any better, Jen. That's exactly it. The spirit is completely neutral. We should never put any identity on our own spirit. Our spirit is completely free of.
Mhm,
It's selfless, actually.
mhm. Yeah,
It lacks, it doesn't need self-identification because it
mhm.
just is.
It just is. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of people who want to develop mediumship. Always include a point where you just sit in your own spirit, not concerned about other spirit or
Mhm.
anything, but you being your spirit being you in that beautiful neutrality where
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You don't need to be anything, you just
No.
be
Or prove anything,
or prove
being
anything.
behind the chair, we both spent many
Yes,
years behind the chair. And
yes,
a lot of people came to me, and still to this day, people are like, why did you quit? And I
mhm,
think they loved my energy. I mean, I was good at what I did. I know I
yep,
was good at what I did, but I think I was better at holding space for them when they were in my chair. And
I
what
agree.
I realize now is the ego, if I tell you advice, if I give you a download, if I give you a message
Yeah,
and you say you want more or you're arguing, the ego will want to convince you. Spirit, it's like, period. There's
mm,
nothing more to say. Take it or leave it. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
this is the message.
And I think that's a beautiful place to be in your path where you know, and it's not arrogance. You've worked to know.
Hmm.
You've spent a lifetime working to be able to say, I know. So you don't then, double that down and go, I'm not sure. Well, no, 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 you know,
Hmm.
because you've put in the work. You haven't just arrived there. You've worked with people, you've held this space. I did the same. And like you, I felt I was good at my job because I loved my job,
Hmm.
but I also loved people. And I loved working with people, especially when they came to the chair and they were badly broken. And though you're creating something around their hair and making them feel better that way, you're also working in their energy field. And a lot of people would come back to me and say, yeah, yeah, do what you did the last time. And you think, what did I do the last time?
I don't know.
But it would just, you'd carry on again and do, the stuff. But again, there was a blending of energy because that lovely, I don't know, bonding between somebody who's letting you into their field,
Hmm.
who's trusting you and you taking care of it, genuinely knowing I'm allowed to be in this space and I'll hold it as long as they're in my chair. There was a sense of healing and balancing going on more than anything. Some walked out looking better as well after the
Yeah.
hair job.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk about this because I think we had a conversation and I think we might disagree. I don't know, but I
Mm,
think it's worth the conversation. Is I actually got so I you wouldn't know by looking at me, but I'm not motivated by money at all. Like, things just
mm,
like happen. Like, so
me
when I
too.
did hair, it didn't matter to me. I
Mhm.
just, I really wanted to make you look beautiful. And if you couldn't afford me,
Yeah.
pay me next time or whatever.
Mhm.
And I've had to change my ways because what happened was I was attracting a lot of people that wouldn't do the work for themselves and were just
Yeah.
takers. And I know that I'm an empath. I'm actually teaching a class on being an empath tonight. And I think that
Wonderful.
that is where the boundaries for me got so loose that I went through a very, very dark time to where
Yeah.
I almost got to where I didn't like people anymore because of who I was attracting. And there's a question here, and it's about how, and I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of people believe that you've never charged for a reading. And so I had to get to a place where understanding that money was the
Mm,
same frequency as love. And I do charge, and I know some
absolutely.
people do and some people don't. And
Yeah.
it's worth the conversation about boundaries, money, charging, not charging. Where do you stand and how did you protect yourself?
Well, for me, Jen, I worked. I was a hairdresser, so I had an income. So when I was doing my development in my spiritual class, um, I wasn't allowed to do readings anyway in the early days. Only when I was ready to work as a medium, my teacher allowed me to work. She brought people to me to see how my readings would work for them, and they worked well. Um, and then she asked me, will you do some readings whenever somebody's had a loss? So I always just worked that way, and there was never a charge put on it. It was, they came to a church, they got a service. I was one of the people who served. So it was that was how it was in my psyche. There wasn't a charge for it. I worked for a living, so I didn't need the money.
Mhm.
I had an income. And then when I started working for big spiritual organizations and things, and they say, oh, we booked you 10 readings to do. And I'd say, okay, fine. And they say, how much do you charge? And I'd say, I don't. So it wasn't something I set out to do. It just was there. And they said, what do you mean you don't? Well, I don't. And I said, do you charge the organization? Yes, we do. I said, well, then charge. And what do you want us to do with the money? I said, keep it. I don't, and it won't be right. Now, Jenny, here's one of my beautiful things I can tell everybody. I certainly would never have set out not to take money for readings to hurt other people or to prove a point. Look, I don't charge. I never ever thought like that. I just didn't. That was how it worked. And
Mhm.
it grew. And in my life, I served so many people, thousands, tens of thousands, I suppose, doing readings and on stages and everything. And I used to make money. I didn't think it was wrong to take money. I never did. It just didn't come into my life.
Mhm.
And every time I refused to take money, money turned up in a different way. And I thought,
Yes, it
oh
does.
God, I can't get rid of this. But, and it really, and I tell people this genuinely, there was a point when my life just turned because of mediumship. And I'd running my own business for the first time. You know what that's like when you're running your first business and you're scared because you're not making enough money to pay you and your staff and all the things. And I remember one day walking my dog and I thought, oh, come on, Spirit. I've never asked you for a thing. I've never charged. That's not a point, but can you help me out here? Guide me. I'll work for it, but find me something to help my
Mhm.
life. I got home to the flat. I was walking my dog, my lovely spaniel, and I let him back into the house. My little answering machine back then, if any of you who's old enough will remember these answer machines that flashed when there was messages, old tape recorder button. And I played it. And the first voice that come on, I've just asked Spirit to help me. Hi, you don't know me. My name is Michelle Pilley and I work for a company called Hay House Publishing. She said, we as a company would like to offer you a book contract. We'd love to talk to you about it. And I thought, book contract? Oh, wow. Okay, I thought, right, call us back on this number. I take the number in. Second call. Hi, you don't know me. My name is Jane. I work for a newspaper in Scotland called the Daily Record. And we're looking for somebody to write a column, just to write a column on spiritual and psychic things. And I thought, oh, right. Can you call me on this number? So within that minutes of asking, I had two calls that saved my life financially because it bailed me out of a bad business situation. And
Mhm.
that was, I worked for both. I wrote a book, I wrote a column, or many columns. And my life just went up a notch. But because of all of that, I then went on to a different level of working because Hay House took me around the world touring. And
Yeah.
when they said, oh, you can do this mediumship thing, we can sell lots of books. So though I wasn't charging for reading, I was still getting money for my gift,
Mhm.
but it came in a way that it was organic and
Yes.
natural. And
Yes.
I think when it comes to the charging for readings and things, I think you have to do what your heart tells you. There's not such a thing as right or wrong. It's actually where you are at that moment.
Mhm.
And what is it? I don't think it makes you a better person not to charge money for a reading. I don't think that ever made me a better person. It was just because my life was fashioned that way. My mediumship was fashioned that way in the
Mhm.
very early days of my training. And because money kept coming to me, I never needed it. And I've sat with some of the richest people in the world who have offered me unthinkable amounts of things that I've said no. And I've sat with the poorest people in the world who have nothing to give, but they
Mhm.
gave you their thanks and gratitude. And that was enough.
Yeah.
And I balance all of that in my mind by saying I did what was right for me, and I still do.
Yeah.
And some of my best friends who their livelihood has been private one-to-one readings. That's their livelihood. It's not
Yeah.
up for, again, I say it, it's not up for question. I very rarely question other people unless they're doing something horribly wrong. I tend to find people find their own level of things. And you just need to justify everything to yourself and be at peace with your decisions. That's all I would say to people. Be at peace with your decisions.
Yeah, I think it comes down to internal ethics. And I
Yeah.
also think that money is a vibration and you will attract people on every vibration. And so if you have a true heart's desire to serve, you will serve people for free and people that find you and book an
Yeah.
appointment on your website or however you do this.
Absolutely.
I think that there needs to be permission granted, which you just
Yeah.
did. And I'm so happy that I was
Yeah.
part of this conversation because there are a lot of mediums, when most of the mediums I know are in the United States and Canada that are
Yeah.
struggling to charge, but yet they
No,
are
they shouldn't.
working on this
Yeah.
craft day in and day out. And they feel unworthy because they feel like it's a gift. But the thing is we
Yeah.
all have this gift.
I think
It's your
mediumship
time.
sits on the cusp of things. with the spiritual side of things. So people feel that a spiritual thing shouldn't be rewarded. You just have to look at your churches all
Mhm.
over the world, your religious bodies. They're the richest organizations ever. Seriously.
Correct.
You know, whenever somebody said to me, do something religious, I thought, we'll just take a collection from the people. That's what I thought of religion. But what I'm meaning is it's a self thing. And I think because you're growing spiritually, you have a fight. There's a battle goes on consciously or unconsciously, even subconsciously, saying right and wrong. And you need to go over right and wrong. When you get over right and wrong, none of this matters.
Mhm.
Right and wrong are this constant duality that you need to bring as one.
Mhm.
So if you look at the right and wrong like a yin and yang, they're not separate, they are one.
Mhm.
It's not two things, it's not masculine and feminine. It's not good and bad, it's not dark and light. It's one. So when you find the oneness, there is no duality.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of understanding duality, is that all is one.
Yeah. I like to say duality as a daily practice because it's constant push and pull. It's,
Yes,
the night and the light. It's
yes,
everything. And if you really embody that it is a daily practice of
yeah,
holding both and how much do you want to expand,
yeah,
that's going to create your reality. And I do charge for readings, but I also say, please bring me those I can serve. And
yeah,
just recently somebody came on and we're 5 minutes into the reading and I've gotten two pretty strong no's. And I said, I don't think I can serve you. I want to get off the phone and refund your money. I'll have recommendations to you in your inbox within, 30
yeah,
minutes. And I knew that I wasn't the one to serve her. But then
yeah,
in Encinitas, I don't know if I told you this story, Daniela, who's from Argentina, she's one of my
yeah,
closest friends, a born medium. She is very clairvoyant, so she sees. I'm very clairsentient, which I feel, and we're
yeah,
very different. She's never charged for reading, and I've actually pushed her in some situations where she did take donation and then she donated it all to dog rescue, and that's the way she
yeah,
works. But we were in Encinitas on our first night. We went out to dinner, and Daniela is a life of the party. I can't wait for you to meet her next year.
yeah,
But we sit down and this woman is sitting next to us and she might have had a bottle of wine already. It was her birthday and she was celebrating
mhm,
alone. And she ends up talking to us and she said, the one thing I wanted for my birthday this year that I didn't have the nerve to do was to book a reading with a medium. And me and Danielle look at
oh.
each other. We're like, well, turns out. And so we both
Happy
with her
birthday.
for probably 2 hours. We're having a conversation with her.
Yeah,
Danielle is getting things. I'm getting very different things. This woman was beside herself. Did we actually, I think, bought her dinner. So no, we didn't
good.
charge. We paid her.
But life has its own balance to everything. It really does. And for any medium that is watching us now who's frightened of charging, stop the fear. Go
Mhm.
and do what you need. You know, you have an ability, you have a gift. I am so lucky that I've never needed to, honestly, Jen. If I had to, I would, but I've just not needed to. Money has come to me through so many different angles in my life. And I just feel it's almost like serendipity in some ways. It's been wonderful. But yet in other ways, I think, no, you gave yourself this path. This
Mhm.
is the path you chose. And beautiful things happen to me, honestly. And I can't thank the universe, spirit, whoever enough for the beauty that is in my life, the wonderful things. And I have money and it has come through my gift, but just not in that way.
Yeah.
So there's no difference to it. But again, I repeat what I said, reiterate exactly what I said. Be at peace with what you do. Don't be in conflict with the inner you.
Mhm.
Find a way that the inner you is happy to serve and be rewarded. My rewards come in many different ways. You know, one time I read for a lovely old gentleman, a beautiful reading. I remember it clearly. He'd lost his wife, no children, just his dear wife. They'd been partners for 40 years, and she died before him. And he was sad because he said, I should have been the one who died.
Mhm.
And he came for the reading. He got a beautiful reading. And at the end, he said, how much do I owe you, son? I said, oh, no, I don't charge, son. He said, no, no, wait. He said, look, I come from a world where you reward service. And you've just done me a service, a beautiful service, actually. Now I have to pay you something. I said, no, sir, honestly. Actually, I felt really sorry for this man. This is how my mediumship is. I thought there was something so sad about that elderly man. And he came back to see me. And in those days, I smoked cigarettes and he brought me 200 cigarettes, which I said, that would have cost you more than even if I did charge. And he said, no, but I want you to have them. eventually we got talking, Jen, and me being me, I happened to say, he said something about, I'm going out to a pub on Sunday to have a roast dinner because my wife always cooked me a roast dinner. And I said, well, I'm actually cooking a roast dinner. Why don't you come to dinner with us? And he became a lifelong friend till he died. But what he did, we did not know this. He was one of the wealthiest men in Scotland, I suppose, but he didn't look like that. Very
Hmm.
clever man. He dressed down. He drove us a little car also. And when I went into business and I was looking for loans and things like that to do this, and behind my back, he got his accountant to come and set all this business up. And I said, that
Wow.
was a really expensive reading you had. His name was Gordon as well. I said, I wish I would have just taken £20 off you. And he said, no. He said, not only did you give me a reading, I found a friendship. He says, but more than that, I found a reason to want to continue, which was to help you and your then partner, Jim, to actually start a business. I wanted to see you happy, son. So you gave me something to really thrive for. And I thought mediumship works on so many levels, and we should never try and work it out. Just go with the flow, do it
Hmm.
anyway, and don't think about it. I think people do these terrible post-mortems in their own mind about mediumship, and they need to leave self alone. Just go
Yes.
with the flow.
That makes me so happy. I'm smiling so big right now. I just love that story. And I think that when you're in your heart, so
Yeah.
I have friends I think that get mad at me because of the shit that happens in my life, but it's
Yeah.
because I'm open. When you have an open heart
Yes.
and you're willing to just say thank you, it's like that is an
Yeah.
amazing story.
Yeah.
Ah,
And I've learned over the years that that's how my life does work. And
mhm,
sometimes it's been a monetary input to my life through some means, but other times it's just been a friendship that's formed. I say just been, it's a wonderful thing. So there's so many rewards for what you do as a medium. And that's where I am just like you, Jen. I'm open to whatever, to
mhm.
whomever. And sometimes that messes you up a little bit, or it messes your path a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? 5 minutes down the road, change will come. The wonderful thing about the human part of us is it's impermanent. And so is
Mhm.
all the situations around it. So that leaves you open to impermanence, but change. So
Yes,
change is going to come.
change is gonna come.
Yeah.
It's funny even when so most people would I don't know. I assume most people wouldn't do this, but I only know myself. And on the first night of the training in England, where
In the
I
UK.
went to train with Gordon, I just went up to his table and I said, "May I sit next to you?" And you joke that Jackie, your bouncer, was like giving you the eye, like, "Do we need to kick her out?" Thankfully, I had been in email communication with Jackie. She knew I was a good person. But I wanted to introduce myself and say, I don't even know what I said, but it was calm. And I felt like I was sitting next to an old friend. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I didn't want your autograph. It was more
No,
about
we
I feel a
we sat
connection to you.
just talking, and then we took it from the dining place out into the bar, where it grew into a whole other world of things. It's like, yeah.
Yes, it did. I Gordon is an amazing singer, and I am
Oh,
not, but I did drink
oh,
enough
you're a good
champagne to
singer
think
too.
I was.
And that's why I have no voice.
I my goal is to take singing lessons this entire year. So when I come back next year, I can actually sing for you and you're gonna be like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, 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 you were good. I thought you did really well,
Oh my
especially
goodness.
doing the Disney stuff. But we went through the whole range of songs there. But that's another thing. If you go off with some spiritual teachers, mediums, a lot of them remove themselves from the people.
Yes.
And since I've been doing this, I've always been a people person anyway. And I've worked with some mediums who were talking about some of the crap that people say.
Mm,
You know, like, oh, when I sit with the ordinary people, they actually use the terms, when I sit with ordinary people, my energy gets affected. And I think, how dare you say that? These are people you might be lucky to meet.
mm,
You have no idea who they are until you sit with them. And I have always been that person, being open enough. I have good enough sensitivity that if I don't feel comfortable in a place, I can make an excuse and walk away.
mhm,
But more times than not, I end up drinking with people, singing with people, partying with people, because it's part of the experience.
mhm,
Why would you want to go to a weekend like we just had and then go up to your room and sit while the downstairs is all having a party? Why
mhm.
would you want to feel, but my energy can't take that? Anybody whose energy cannot take a boost of happiness, something wrong with you. So happiness comes through sharing with people. And You know, I used to get brought on events for my publisher many years ago because the spiritual teachers were so separate from the people.
Yeah.
So they would bring me because they'd say, "Well, you're good in the social setting," and I would just have these social nights where I would order loads of champagne and say to people, "Okay, you can come and talk. We'll talk about anything you want. Don't get too heavy. Don't get too serious. Have a drink, relax. I'm really more than happy to talk to you all night. But try and let's have a bit of fun as well tonight. It's not
Yeah.
a serious thing." Spirituality and the spiritual growth of development of mediumship, it might well be a school, but every school has playtime.
Yes.
There's always a playtime in a school as well,
Yes.
remember?
That's probably why we become friends, is
Yeah.
because I take it very seriously, but then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, lights, not lights off. That's going to make people think something weird. Lights off, champagne time. I didn't miss
But it's an
the
important
spiritual
part of the
lightness.
journey. It's a real important part of the journey is being happy with it,
Yes.
making people see that you're a happy person. Who would want to go and develop mediumship from a medium whose face was like really demure and serious and constantly had an aggressive tone? Mediumship is a gracious thing, and real mediums speak totally from their heart. Right there is where it
Mhm.
comes from. And you, my spirit guide once taught us all a lesson when he came through one time and he spoke. Somebody asked him, "How do you know when people are being genuine? How do you know when there's a real spiritual teacher?" These were all the questions. And my guide spoke through me and said to people, "Then stop listening to the words they say and start listening to the sound they make. Turn off the intelligence to the words and feel the sound they make. If they make happy noise, you will be attracted to them. If they
Mhm.
make disparaging noise or something that repels you, you are right to stand back from them. Listen to the sound people make more than the words that they say sometimes, especially if you're uncertain with a person. Listen to are they making friendly noise? Are they making easy sound? Or is this, something that's disgruntled and it's aggressive or it's sharp? And spirit don't speak sharply. Spirit speak with grace.
Yeah. I do have to ask because I am one of those people that you were just talking to. I'm taking notes, no, where I do sometimes have to recover. When I'm in it, I have a
Mhm.
wonderful, beautiful time, and I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if you were always this way, or, I get exhausted. Like I do have to have alone time. Like even after our event, I stayed in bed for an entire day. That could have been partly because of the amount of champagne I consumed.
I
I
would
don't
think a
know.
bit of that.
But energetically I do, and I think it comes down to boundaries. And I did watch you and observe, and you do have amazing boundaries without being harsh, without saying anything appropriate. You definitely have that kind of attraction and repellent thing going
Mhm.
on, and you know how to excuse yourself with so many people maybe seeking to be in your presence, or maybe even like glamorizing you, or grandiosity
Yeah.
syndrome, or I didn't witness one person at that event ask you to read them or ask you for messages. They just enjoyed your company, and that has to be an internal boundary that you probably built up over the
Oh,
years. Or
yeah.
have you always been this way?
I think I've been this way a lot of my life. But I must admit, though, when I first started working as a medium, actually doing it professionally, um, I would feel exhausted. I would get moments where, and that was the physical Gordon and the mental Gordon. So my mentality wasn't so strong. Here's the thing, Jen. I think once I had a Buddhist teacher as well, and she taught me how to become psychologically robust. So she would teach me how to exercise my psyche so that I could be in a lot of people's company and not overdose in there or be drained. And that was so I was exercising my mind through different little classes that I took and seeing how much I could give without it pulling at me. So you create a mind muscle, if you like.
Okay.
But that also tells you that mind muscle's tired. It's a bit like if you're running, if you're practicing running, you'll
Mhm.
know your distance you can go. So I'm the same socially. So in that social situation, I feel when my mind gets tired, I start to get forgetful very quickly, and I think, "Oops, we're heading into the amber zone. Don't go red."
Mhm.
Get away now. Just that's enough. You won't be exhausted in the morning. You're getting your warning things. So I learned that to work with my own psychology so that I became psychologically robust in big companies. And that way I measure my own abilities and mentally go, now we're tired.
Mhm.
Now you don't have anything else to give. Or
Mhm.
now you're going to become drained if you stay here another 10 minutes. And I'm really good at that.
You
But
are.
it means I can get up the next day and go, wow, I protected my boundary
Yeah.
because it needed it. So it's training and learning how to be aware of your own boundary. Don't don't drown yourself in
Mhm.
something because you're having a great time. Yes, you would love to, but you can still have a better time tomorrow. But you
Yeah.
won't if you give it all away in one night. so
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
it's measuring it, I think, and being mindful of your own boundary. Yeah.
And learning more about how energy is so permeable when you don't have good boundaries, and being an
Yeah.
empath and all of that, I help people with this,
Oh
and
yeah.
understanding, like Gordon, the way he's talking, he's had many years of working with energy and understanding where he can be and where he cannot be. And as an empath, it's all about boundaries and what is your need. If you're going into a group of people drinking and having a good time, do you need something from them, or are you going for enjoyment? Because if you need something, your auric field's going to be too open, and that is going to drain you because you're going to get your need met and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I found opened up for me when I was training very early on was empathy.
Mm.
And I think my mother used to always say that I was naturally a very kind child. Of all her children, she said, you used to give everything away to people and to the point you were left with nothing. And my mother used to say, I hope he doesn't go through his whole life like this because he's going to just give everything away. But as I was doing my development, I started to feel people's pain. And it wasn't an imaginary thing. I quite literally would feel when somebody was in painful discomfort, a headache, and I think, oh, my head, and I don't suffer from headaches, but I thought that really was a headache. What's that? So I started to learn this almost empaths have a physical kind of condition as well, which is being somatic, not psychosomatic, but somatic, where your body can almost absorb from a room or from another person. And
Mhm.
that's what was happening to me. And Mrs. Primrose said, it's part of your training. You're going to have to understand it. Don't push it away, learn it. And I learned because I realized, so what's the point if my father is in crippled pain on his knees with arthritis or rheumatics, and I take it as well? Isn't that two negatives? If my dad doesn't get better for a while I've got it, then what's the point to it? But then Mrs. Primrose taught me, she said, no, as a sensitive, as an empath, you are identifying personally with that man's pain, even if only for a moment. But don't ever think that he hasn't got that for the whole of his life. You're only feeling it for a moment, but it also lets you into his world then. And I thought, that makes sense. Then it's a usable factor. It's a faculty that is worth something because it lets you sensitively feel for a moment what that person's going through. But you don't need to carry it all your life, and that won't make them better. But it will give you an insight into how to maybe help them or guide them or
Mhm.
whatever the next step is. Luckily for me, that stopped after a while. I was glad I was walking about all crippled and picking up everything. You
Yeah.
couldn't go into a hospital without saying, oh my God, I feel everything. So you got to watch you don't become a spiritual victim of your own empathy, because you will not solve other people's problems,
Mhm.
but it will highlight in you, wow, they're poor souls. They're going through something I can't see, but I can feel it.
Mhm.
And now it gives me a measure of how to try and heal that. So empathy is a beautiful thing if you can manage it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It's all work. It's all lesson. It's all school, as Gordon says. We're all in
Yeah.
school. And so just know that if that what he was saying is coming from a place of good boundaries,
Yeah.
because you do, and you've learned that over time. And it's so wonderful to hang out with you. And it's so wonderful to have funny conversations and
Yeah.
sing and have a drink. But it's equally profound, if not more, to watch you in front of a group and talk about things like we've been talking about, and
Mm,
really dissect what is absolutely going on,
yeah.
in the spirit realm, because we have a physical body that has the five senses, and then we hear about the sixth sense, but the spirit has all those senses as well. And that is what is happening when you do this work, is you then have 10 senses or 20 senses or however many there are. We don't really know,
We don't
but
know.
it's very complicated.
Yeah. And just what you've said is remarkable, I hope, for people watching, because more and more people need to be able to understand this. You rightly said we have 5 senses in the body, but when you're open, when you're lit, who knows how many senses are reaching out in all different parts. And I don't think we need to calculate it all. I think we just need to enjoy being aware and in that beautiful, beautiful moment. Because if we get little enlightenments like that in our life, it's waking up. And
Mhm.
it's the most beautiful thing, Jen. One of the loveliest pieces ever written about mediumship. Um, it was actually written about spiritualism back in the day, but I changed it to mediumship because it's more apt, I think. And it was a lovely poet called Gerard Massey who wrote this beautiful thing on his awakening when he knew it was real, when he knew that this was a life in the air. It wasn't just imaginary or a belief or a religion. And he wrote it as spiritualism, but I would say mediumship has been to me, in common with others, such a lifting of the mental horizons and letting in of the heavens, a formation of faith into fact that I only can compare my life before it to that of travelling on board a ship beneath decks with all hatches fastly battened down, living by the light of a single candle, until one splendid starry night, being allowed on the top deck to witness the stupendous mechanism of the heavens all aglow with the glory of spirit. And to me, that's what the wakening up is, being a prisoner to yourself. And then one day, look what I'm part of.
Yes.
This is real. This is real,
Yeah.
guys. It's incredible and it's beautiful.
Mm,
Mm,
I love that so much. Wow.
It's
And
absolutely
what
beautiful.
is the name of that poem?
Gerard Massey, I don't think there's a name to it. He just wrote it one time when he
Mm,
had an enlightening experience with spirit.
mhm.
Finding the spirit of himself, it was, though, Jen. It was that what you talked about earlier, that when he knew, I cannot die for the life of me, my life force will go on and on.
Mhm.
And that then tells you, don't worry about the little things. There's so much more bigger going
Yes.
on that you're a
Yeah.
part of.
That brings me to another question somebody asked, which I heard you teach about this, so I knew, but why do you say I cannot, or you cannot die for the life of you?
Quite literally, because your life force is eternal.
Yes.
So the body being the overcoat will fall, but that which is, and people think your spirit's in your body, but it's your spirit is your body and beyond. So the spirit drops the body, if you like, and moves on. And it's just another part of the continuation of
Mhm.
life. If people truly understand, when you people think of a creator God, that God created all of this and God is this being outside there that we look up to and pray to and all of that. God nor Buddha nor Christ nor whomever you look to should ever be far away from you.
Mm,
They should be you.
mhm.
You should pray out to Buddha or God or Jesus. You should be open to them. You are them. You openly express the God in you, the goddess, the whatever, however you see it, because it's all part of the same moving universe. It's in the ancient Chinese teaching, they say in the Tao, that the God that can be named is not a true God.
Mm,
The real God is the moving universe that you're part of,
yeah,
and you are it. So, and therefore, that is why we cannot die for the life of us. We are part of life. Life is us.
absolutely.
And personality is impermanent. So you have this personality for a moment in time. And it is in time because when we're not here, we're not in time. It's because we're in time, we identify with things that happen linear. So beyond that, then we go into no time. And that's where we just become part of the flow again until
Mm,
we choose to come into time again.
yeah.
Um, if we
There's
have that.
two thoughts that are coming up. There's a and I'm forgetting the name of the author, but there's a book called Quiet. And
Ooh, I
I
like that.
really found that book fascinating. And in the
I like
beginning
that.
have you read it?
No, but I love the title.
Yeah, but it really it's about extrovert and introversionism. I just made up a word, I think.
Yeah, that's a
And
good word.
it like the term good personality was not even coined until
No.
the turn of the century, because nobody knew that they had to be anything else but what they
Yeah.
were. And so it went from the working man to the salesman, and the salesman needed to be liked. And so we went from maybe possibly all being more introverted because we were more aware of what was happening on an internal level, and trying to survive the masculine.
Mm.
And then we got addicted to antidepressants and anxiety medicine around the 1920s
Yeah.
because everybody was like, why do I have anxiety? Well, it's because we created the false self to be
Yeah.
liked. And the personality is more attached to
Yeah.
the brain, the body, what people perceive me
100%.
as, instead of the mind and the spirit, and what am I feeling, and what am, like, animalistic, like, am I
Yeah.
being repelled, or am I showing my teeth? There's a reason.
Yes. Yes. And all of that is so apt, because at that particular time, at the birth of modern psychology, I suppose, or psychiatry,
Mhm.
was the same time as the birth of modern spiritualism. It's when
Oh,
mediums came out of the woodwork at the exact same time. So there was a lot going on to do with the mind and the consciousness at the same time. And some people were learning it on a medical level, like Freud and Jung and all the others who followed their paths. But they were learning about personality, and that, do you have more than one personality? And I would say, oh my God, I've got a whole party going on here. Me and
hundreds,
all
hundreds.
me and all of me. Jenny and I never come alone. We bring a party to a party. So, but the idea is that you are all these aspects of self. The Tibetans put it beautifully when they say what your consciousness at its best is a cut diamond, beautifully multifaceted, perfectly. But in order to get that, it has to be chipped and chipped. It starts as a rough piece of stone, but each facet is another personality.
Yes.
It's who you've been. It's where, da da da. And when the crystal is completely created, then each personality, when it's lit, will show a different color. But that's
Mm.
a different aspect to who you are, and that's okay to know that. I can be Gordon the hairdresser and be that person, but I can also be Gordon the dad. I can be Gordon the partner to someone. I can be Gordon the friend. I can be Gordon the teacher. And they are all different aspects of that crystal.
Hmm.
But in another life, I could be Jean or Joan, who has these parts of the same crystal. And all of these things are relevant, because we shouldn't start trying to measure too much. We should just keep letting it occur and working with it, and honing and refining the
Hmm.
crystal that we are,
Yeah.
and just shine after that. Then you just shine.
And realizing what environment we shine in. And
Yes,
so there's certain environments where we will be dull. And there's
of
certain
course.
environments that I really like myself. I like myself when I hang out with you, Gordon.
Yeah, well, I like myself when I hang out with you as well, Jen. We have great
But
compatibility.
that's permission. Like, you are a diamond, but be careful on what setting you're
Yeah.
in, what environment you're in, because you will not
Yes.
always shine.
No, no.
Yeah.
And that's also equally good to know about yourself, when you shine and when you don't, when
Hmm.
you suppress your own energy and say, no, I'm here not for me to shine, but for others. And I'm
Yeah.
here to enjoy them shining for me,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
learning how wonderful it is to see another person shine and, show their brightness to the world, which is, I think it's equally as important to know when to shine and when not.
Hmm. And this is the difference between self-love and the ego. The ego says,
Yeah.
I love me when you love me. And self-love says, I love me because I love me.
Yeah, I just love me. And and it takes quite a bit of a lifetime to honestly admit to yourself that you love you,
Mm.
or even like you. I know it took me a long time to really enjoy being me, but
Mhm.
now I do.
Yeah.
I really, really do. It's as honest as I can be. Happiness that is in my life has come through acceptance of my mistakes
Yeah.
and owning up to them, to myself. It doesn't mean to don't need to do it to the world, but there's a relief in saying it's okay not to always be brilliant or good or the best or whatever. Sometimes you've had that dull moment or that day of non-expression, I can't achieve, or you've done something wrong and think, shit, I didn't want to do something wrong, but I did. Now I know what that feels like. But if you're not that honest with yourself, then you're deluded. But it's when you break free of the delusion and think, I actually am human and not perfect, but as a
Yeah.
spirit.
Mhm.
When the spirit of me is alive and light and whatnot, and you can only get those moments at certain times. And when that does happen, it just reminds you of why we're doing this. Wow,
Mhm.
how worth it is. But you need to repair the physical manifestation that you made. You
Mhm.
need to constantly work on it and constantly remind it and teach it through this life. Your spirit teaches your body if you're awake. And that's what happens. But it also tells you it's okay sometimes just to be the body. Maybe
Yeah.
you just need to be the body for a while.
Mhm. And this takes radical responsibility, a lot of self-reflection and ownership of the hardships. I mean, we want to celebrate the wins, but with
Mm,
that duality as a daily practice, you also have to take ownership of the
of course
darkness
you
in
do.
your life. And it's, I say darkness loosely because
Yeah,
you'll know who did the poem, I think The Law or My Law, where she's like, you are your own devil, you are your own
of
God.
course you are. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that poem changed me
Hmm.
because it's like, oh my gosh, I am my own universe. I am, the God is within me. So where am I going to pay my most attention? But I can't
Yeah,
get away from the darkness if there's light, because I'm in this human experience. If
yeah.
the sun is out, I have a shadow.
Of course you do. And the relevance of all of this is that we are multifaceted, and that we would probably find it impossible to know or be aware of all of us, all of self at all time.
Mhm.
And therefore we need to wander in and out of self and levels of self. And it's again, it's okay to do nothing. In fact, it's important sometimes to do nothing, that just to be.
Yes.
Because sometimes when somebody once asked one of the old Tibetan masters, master, why do we meditate? And he says, to prepare. He said, to prepare for what? And he says, to prepare for whatever. And that's it. So we meditate because it will give us advantage at some point. Doing nothing isn't doing nothing. Doing nothing is actually preparation for the next thing to come. So you can
Oh,
never really do nothing.
what a beautiful thing to go into our winter season with.
Yes.
Let's hibernate. Let's do nothing and be prepared for what's to
Well,
come.
do you
I
know, one of
feel.
the things I wrote many years ago in a children's book I wrote called A Thin Place, which was about children grieving. In
Mm,
fact, it's going to be re-released next year, I think. But one of the things I talked about was the seasons, and trying to explain in a childlike way to children who had lost siblings and things, was that when nature looks like it's dying in the autumn, at the end of autumn, and I used the seasons and the elements and things to try and teach them. And I said, when winter comes, I said, winter's the old goddess. I said, and she has a long white braid in her hair. I said, and when she undoes her braid and she scatters her hair across the land and she holds spring prisoner, she holds her down. And people think nothing's happening in the land. But beneath the land, everything is preparing for birth. And when the young goddess is allowed to break free, the world becomes full of life, light, flowers, fruit, vegetation, greenery. And all of a sudden, all that stillness that was there, where people thought nothing was happening, preparation was happening for beauty to be born again. And to me, that is the way that life works, that living and dying are just part of a natural evolution that we are going through. And we call it going through bardos, different bardos. So this is the bardo of the body, if you like. But then there's the bardo of the spirit, free of the body, which is what we would call death. But then that same bardo can repeat itself, like spring and summer and autumn and winter. So your journey can be seasonal. That you might have a summer life,
mm.
you might have an autumn life, you might have. If you pick your season and think, wow, what season do I come into this world in, and what season will I go out of it in? Be interesting to see, just what people would think of that. I
Yeah.
came in the summer. Um, no idea when I'll go out, but I'd be happy to go out in any season these days.
Yeah, just for you guys wondering, Gordon is also a Cancer. He's the 6th, right? July 6th.
6th of July, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That was so beautiful. I am going to buy that children's book because of my love for inner child work and just healing. And that story just, it really resonated with me. I think that we all have a child within. And I think sometimes reading any children's book is just about simplification, and we need that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, Jen, it was one of those dreams of mine was to write a book that could inform children about death and dying and living without it being morbid or without it having some kind of heavy tone to it. And what I did was I gave my little boy character in it a language called sense. That when he went to live with his grandmother in the country because his sister dies, it's this horrible long illness. And then there's a point where he goes into his inner world because his mum and dad are angry at each other. They're sad. So it's all the emotion. And there's a little boy. He doesn't understand why his parents have all. He calls it their dark time. But what happens is he starts to think aloud within himself, and he realizes nature, the animals in nature, can hear him thinking,
Mm.
but he can hear them. So that becomes a language of sense, and only animals and children can speak sense. Adults don't know how, they've lost how to talk sense. So he ends up using sense as a means of communication with nature, and nature teaches him about death and dying and living and rebirth and all the stuff. And then he helps his parents, and he tries to with what he's learned. So the kid brings the knowledge to them through sense. He talks sense to them. And it's just
I
a
have a
beautiful little
feeling this
story.
book might become a movie.
Oh, well, they're already, Disney are already looking at it. So we could write, we'll sing the theme song together.
Oh my gosh, can I be a
Okay.
character?
You can. Do you know I actually have already written the theme song for it?
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's called There's Life in the Air. And it's like a
Oh,
beautiful Disney waltz. Da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da, da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. So there you are. But yes, so you're psychic.
I guess I'm psychic. It'll be coming to Disney in 2027.
Good girl, go on, predict it. But yeah,
2027.
I would imagine yeah, because the book was already self-published, the book, rather than put it through publishing. But my Hay House, the publishers, have said, yeah, we're going to take that book now and do something bigger with it. So it's another one of my dreams that's just been born again, and I
Wow.
love
Oh
that.
my gosh. I'm so excited for you. I feel it. I love it. Maybe I can be like a bunny character that comes in and has a
You do
line,
realize
a one line.
actually one of the main characters is a bunny, a bunny, a little girl bunny. Yeah. Yeah, and her name is she's Flopsy Brabbit because she's floppy ears down here. Flopsy Brabbit, and Bunty Brabbit is her sister, and Jack
Ooh,
Brabbit is her brother. And he
this
took the Brabbit family become his closest friends. You're really, really there with me. I think you're going to play one of the Brabbit girls.
Oh, I'm blushing. I'm blushing a little bit,
Oh,
everybody.
that is so cool. I love that. You see, that's just a nice sign for me. You're just giving me confirmations here that, yeah, all of this is going to be. And then I don't even think about it because that's it. I've just been told by
It's all
Jen.
knowing. It's all knowing. It's
It's
already being
all
made.
knowing. You
It's
see, that's
already
how it
being made.
works.
Yes. So you
Fantastic,
did
girl.
say something when you were explaining that book that is, I only have a few more questions for you, but I want to make sure I
Cool,
honor everybody that wrote me. And
cool.
one was, do those who have passed hear your thoughts? And as she asked me this, I thought, I think that they feel the frequency of our feelings, but the thoughts, I'm not sure, but I'm so excited to hear what you have to say because you did just say that with sense that they know your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, thoughts could be in many ways an animation of your feelings. So to understand your feelings, sometimes you have to think it or see it in pictorial form. So thoughts can be a result of feeling. So it's really feeling that they would pick up on. You're right. But the thought maybe give the image of the feeling. In many ways, when I'm trying to train people who say to me, I'm not clairvoyant at all. I don't think in pictures. And I'll say, okay, you don't at all. No. Okay, well, let's work with that. So I want you, if you're somebody who feels and senses, can you remember one of the happiest moments of your life when you were a child? What would that be? And they'll go, oh my God, I remember I had a feeling of joy. I was with my dad, and I'll say, okay, what were you wearing? Oh, I was wearing a red coat. And I said, how red? Da, 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 da. Are you seeing it? Yeah, I am. And I said, so I thought you didn't see. I said, feelings can become pictorial, but
Mhm.
you need to allow it to happen, and you need to stop judging it the way you want to see it. Your own imagination is your own television. How you allow it to be ignited by opening your third eye, whatever. But you got to train to do it. If you're naturally a sensitive, as I am, probably more than a clairvoyant, but I had to train myself to let my feelings, my sensitivity, become pictorial. So
Mm.
that, oh, I see a woman who's standing 5'4". I felt her really, but now I get a vision of her as well. And then I might even get an idea of the way she talked. And that then becomes clairaudience. But many people assume that these voices will just come into your ear, these feelings will happen this way, these pictures will happen that way. So they've got preconceived ideas, and it's not always like that. So you train yourself to use your entire being. So you don't want to just have this monochrome television third eye. You want to have the full technical package up there that can bring in everything. And you teach yourself how to do that as you develop. But spirit will pick up your feelings. How you think them is really for your understanding. But yeah, they will know what you're thinking with it, just by touching the feeling. Goes back to what you said, Jen, about sensing on many different levels. So they'll be able to sense thought on a level as a result of a feeling on a
Yes.
different level. And
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
multimedia.
I think that is one thing that mediumship has taught me, is that when there's too much dialogue, it lowers the frequency. And
Yes.
so if I'm channeling and things are coming through, the accuracy and the flow will be disturbed when you're trying to make sense of it or sharing too much of. Yeah. And so when you're communicating by yourself, and this woman has lost her husband, and so he's going to know the overall feeling, sensation, and question of the conversation that seems to be ongoing in your head faster than do they know the dialogue? It's dialogue is so slow-mo.
It really is. It dials it all down. For spirit know the intention. They know the exact root cause of everything that comes from you in an instant. I think one of the old tapes I listened to of a spirit boy coming through a seance, through a medium in a seance, talking to his mother. And his mother said, David, can you feel me where you are? And he says, Mother, he said, how the spirit world do it from our side, I assimilate everything in an instant. There's no time. So I can't tell you how fast it is. He said, so it's not only what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how that's affecting you, how it reverberates out here. I have the whole lot in one moment. I assimilate it. I don't, then it's mine. And it's like, wow, that's an incredible, just assimilating the whole moment. So we look at it from the very small end, the wrong end of the binoculars. We think, spirits think, feel, do all this. They're just boom in a moment of assimilation of exactly what you're going through, understanding it at the same time, probably, and then way beyond my understanding and meaning of it. But so just know that your husband completely understands you, completely. And he won't be thinking it, he'll be feeling it.
Yeah. Okay, I know that you are a busy man, and I've taken a lot of your time.
I'm really enjoying it, Jenny.
What?
I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, good. I'm enjoying it too. I mean,
great
fun. This is how much time I have left. No. I pointed at the bottle. I'm just kidding. So there's one more question that I thought was interesting, and that it's not really mediumship related, but what is your definition of deja vu?
Did you just say that? So, yeah, I mean, deja vu for me is a bit like your aura is on a faster vibration than you, and can be out of time. So you can be in even like a daydream. So in that sense, if you're in a daydream, you're in an altered state of consciousness. So your consciousness may well be out, projected slightly out of you. So as you're walking down a street in a place that you've never been, your aura's already just detected that. But by the time it comes back to your brain, you've walked into the place and thought, and the two things cross over, and you think, oh, I've been here before. Well, you were seconds before. You were there. That's one way of looking at it. It's not the only way. That is one way of looking at it. One could be that you have actually been there before in another life. It could very well be, certainly when it comes to places, it could be that. The other thing could be that you're starting to know the order of your life because you're becoming aware. So you know what's coming up next in the path because you put it there before you came here. So you know the plan. So sometimes the plan will get revealed in a glimpse. That I suppose there's many different ways of looking at it. I quite like the aura one. That works for me.
Yeah, and it also is relates back to the woman who was beside herself. I do not feel
Yes.
like that story is uncommon. And I think
No,
that any trauma that has been in our lives, there is many opportunities to be beside ourselves. And if we
absolutely.
are sensitive beings, when we are in public or when there's a lot of energy moving,
Yeah.
we may think in a hyper vigilant way to protect ourselves by using our psychic
Mhm.
awareness to kind of see past, present, and future at all times, which could also
Absolutely.
contribute to why we would be more tired or more exhausted.
Yes. Yeah, that would. And remembering that when you're out of time in an altered state of consciousness, when you're out of time, you have the potential to see in all directions of time,
Mhm,
past, present, and future.
mhm.
So that's where somebody might have an, like a just a flashback to the past somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's something that's not commonly reported by people, but it commonly happens, especially nowadays where we can travel around the world. So, societies before us and civilizations before us couldn't do that. So now we could go into, say, France, and you might go into a town in France where you just know you've been there. I did that, and you knew you'd been there. Like,
Yeah.
how did I know? But because we have this wonderful ability to travel the world, we can go to places that we're drawn to without
Mhm.
knowing why we're drawn. But when we get there, we feel comfortable there. Like, oh, I'm at home. How can I say that? I've never been here. But there's a part of you resonates with that town or that place because you know it somewhere in your
Yeah.
heart, you know it from past. So there's all sorts of things. So when you're out of time, you have the privilege of seeing all time if you want. And that's where people can learn how to project themselves into a future, go down a timeline. If you've got something that's occurring that you know that's occurring, you might be able to go down that timeline and see potentially the next, or probability based on what's happening now. There's a probability of what will happen tomorrow and the day after that and so on. So you can learn to go down timelines and see things. And some people just randomly have a dream and see the Twin Tower disaster. They
Yeah.
randomly have something that is like, oh, I saw that, the World Trade Center, and I don't know why. I've never been psychic before. I've never been psychic again, but that bang happens. So, and it can just be that you go onto a timeline and you trip into it, sort of thing. And there are other people who can train to predict and see and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Mm.
This brings me to a question that I decided not to ask you, and then now I'm going to
Good,
ask you.
ask. I like that.
Well, I feel like there could be a disrespect, but there's no
Yeah,
disrespect with the person that asked this question.
not
And
at
it
all.
was, are you able to communicate with the queen? And did you know that she was going to pass?
Um, there would be certain things that I wouldn't say about that.
Yeah, which is totally okay.
But potentially I could have been, yeah, and could have known.
But
Um,
but tapping into that is a choice. It's not like everything is always like a
yeah.
buffet right
Well,
in front of you.
first of all, one thing, I would never intrusively tap into anything I wasn't asked to do.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
the first thing, because I think that is intrusive. It's like one guy said to me, you've met this guy, and you might know who he is. I'll let you use your third eye. Many years ago, he said to me, "Could I look into a potential timeline to see who his girlfriend was going to be?"
Stephen.
And oh yeah, no, it was too quick. You're too good. But so anyway, and as I was doing this, and I said, "No, this is one time, Jenny, I got really exhausted because that wasn't spiritual work I was doing. I was
Mm.
doing this for a friend and trying it. I'm not saying do it. I tried it. I saw a girl, saw where she lived, the house number, even a phone number, and he was like, "Wow." The next week, he met this girl. Never met her before. And he asked for her phone number. She gave him a number, and it was different from the one I gave by one number. And he called her number, and it wasn't the right one. And then he called by the number I gave him, and it was the right one.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm. And he and her lived together for 10 years
Wow.
after that. But I had said to him, I was exhausted. I said, that is nothing I ever want to do again. Don't ever ask me to do that again. That's intrusive. I don't know that that girl was really meant to be. It felt wrong to me what I did.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it was right for him at that time and her. But I just didn't feel right with not having her permission
Mm-hmm.
to look into her life.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
know what I
Yes. Yes.
mean.
Yes.
So I learned from that one. That was when I thought, I don't want to do that again. But if somebody said to me, as my father, he's been missing or something, can you try and help? Looking into that because you've got permission to try and help, that's a
Hmm.
different thing. And I wouldn't mind trying that for people. And I think the spirit world helped me when I do that stuff. But the other thing, I was on my own and I was exhausted because it was my energy I was using. And that,
Yeah.
that was tiresome.
Yeah. I actually can relate to that. I don't
Mm,
think that I knew what I was doing, but I just was always able to just access information. Honestly, it
yes,
started with being behind the chair and girls showing me a picture and be like, is he good?
absolutely. Yeah.
Should I date him? And I'm like,
Yeah.
hell no. Or whatever I said.
Yes. But no, I think that is part of your own ability.
Journey.
One of the different abilities that you have is a clear knowing, you know, you
Hmm.
know. And then when you start to tell them how you know,
Hmm.
it elaborates into something that you think, I'm saying things I have no idea what I'm talking about. And yet I know it's right.
Hmm.
And I've got to just go with it because I've been asked and I've opened it up now. And
Yeah.
that to me is your gift of seership. That if you follow that and take it into reading timelines, that's there. That's there for you. You've already proven that. But it's there, it's part of your makeup, it's part of your faculties that you have as a medium.
Yeah.
And some have that clearly and some don't.
Hmm. And the journey really is for all of us free will. And
Yeah.
we have free will, but our free will become maybe I want to say for myself, a more beautiful journey when I
Yeah.
involve my higher self, when I involve my own intuition, when I involve my
Yes.
own knowing. And so for a third party to seek out information from us,
Yeah.
what would make their journey XYZ,
Yeah.
it disrupts their self-development and their own free will.
Absolutely. And you know, uh, people might not believe this, but when I was about 30, I think, about half my lifetime, I wanted to be a Buddhist full time. I wanted to take the vows and go and live that kind of secular life. And I did think about it. I really thought about it because I thought, yeah, I want to serve that way. And when I went to the Buddhist Lama, and I was lucky to meet this wonderful, beautiful man, and he was just so lovely, and he just smiled all the time, which I loved. I like happy people, and I don't know what he was smiling at, but he was smiling. And I had said to him, can I be a Buddhist? And he just laughed and he said, no. I said, what? What do you mean no? And I said, oh, I'm currently embarrassed now. And laughing, he said, look, he says, you don't need to be a Buddhist and live in a monastery. He said, someone like you needs to be in the world. He said, so for you to become too pious in this life, you'll miss out on so much. People will miss out. He
Hmm.
said, so it's okay to come to the temple, be still, be quiet, recharge, but go back to the world. He says, that's where you're needed. And it made so much sense. And I actually loved that answer. And it was gracious. It wasn't saying you shouldn't be or you can't be. What it was really saying is, have you really thought about your path? Your path's a mixture of all of these things. And don't see that as failure, see that as a great success. Because be the best you can be at it.
Hmm.
And live in all the worlds. Be spiritual, ascended, but
Yeah.
equally be grounded and touch people and love people and share with people. Be all of it because that's what it's on offer for you.
Yeah.
Don't change that by giving it away to sit quiet every day of your life praying. He says that's not your journey this time round. Maybe you'll do it next time. And
Well, and it
I can
makes
live with
sense
that.
with your sign. Like you're a
Yeah.
Cancer. And so
Yeah.
being in the shell and being more of a hermit
Yeah.
is necessary, but
Yes.
really, truly, like everything that a Cancer represents.
Yeah. I
Like,
have Aquarius rising.
I know I was going to say, and your Aquarius rising, like you are a showman. You on
Yes.
stage
Oh, absolutely.
feel just
Yeah.
by watching you. And I love that you always sing and you bring in laughter and this lightness
Yeah.
to the messages, and you see people receiving messages. I mean, seeing you demonstrate, especially with James Van Prague and both of you guys in your kilts, and that
Yeah.
was
That was fun.
amazing. But seeing the messages and these families, like tears in their eyes, but they're
Mm,
not weeping in grief, they're
no.
in joy.
No.
It was
And
lovely.
that's what it is. One of the things I don't do a lot, but I'm asked at times to take funeral services for people. Um, and I always see it as a great honor to send somebody home, as I will say.
Mhm.
So people leave the services, Jen, smiling.
Yeah.
They've just buried their mother or had a cremation of their son or whomever, and they leave with a light, because I refuse to let death hurt people. I refuse to let people hang on to death. For me, death is a beautiful transformation, one that people wrongly think is going to be the end of something. If anything, it's the liberation of the self. And I will put it in a way that it gives people something. There's not a lot we can take from death as people. So whatever you can take, love it, enjoy
Hmm.
it, and let it set you free. Because a good death can be a good grief. If I can make something beautiful in the funeral service, the grief becomes a little bit lighter. You can't take it away because that's human, but you may unburden them a little bit so that they can handle the grief better. And I've always thought that was a beautiful thing to be allowed to do, was to send somebody home in a beautiful way, in a triumph, to say, wow, you lived, you experienced, and now you've gone home. And the people here, at some point, you'll all be reunited. In fact, the minute you know that, you will be,
Yeah.
in heart anyway.
I have a question that just came to me, and it's interesting because when I think of the spirit in the body, what I'm shown is the body is one, but the spirit is vast. So it's not like this
Mm,
one spirit is in
yeah.
this one body, but the union is actually a little bit more complex than that. And so my question, and I feel that this is coming to a close, so I feel like we're at the end of life. We're
Mm,
talking about the closure, but
yeah.
when a spirit does leave the body, have you been shown about how fast it re-enters another
Mm.
body, or is there this pause, or can it be still processing from one lifetime and be living another?
All of the above, Jen. Incredibly so that all of the above, because it's got no limitations like that. Several times I've been taken on that journey and seen several versions of it.
Hmm.
So exactly as you put it, it could be several versions of the
Hmm.
same thing. There would always be the process of kind of leaving the Gordon file in the higher self, if you like, and then emanating the new self in the new body. But the connection is already there. So you can access the Gordon file at any time. It's living in a living database,
Hmm.
the Akashic records, or whatever you want to call it. But the a living database is where you reside as Gordon. Gordon will never die.
Hmm.
So Jenny could come along to Gordon's son and say, "Oh, hold on, I've tapped into your father's energy, and you've just reignited me for a moment. You've given me a moment in this world again as a living being in this world, although I'm a living being over there." But at the same time, the higher consciousness, the bigger you, is what benefits from the return of you, because you bring back all this knowledge and experience you've just had.
Yes.
So the self gets bigger. So it's adding to your hard drive
Hmm.
in many ways. That's you're adding to your hard drive is the bigger you. And the beautiful way it was, I think Marianne Williamson said, our deepest fear is not that we are insignificant. Our deepest fear is that we are, you know, powerful beyond all measure or
Measure.
something.
Mhm.
And that really is it, because the responsibility that comes with that is quite something. Knowing that, and it's why a lot of people don't get that enlightenment in this life, fully enlightened. They
Mhm.
get bits of enlightenment, and that's okay. Because too much enlightenment, there's not much you can do with it while you're in this world.
Yeah.
You'll just become a messiah or something like that.
Mhm. And
I've got
you
too much
referenced
drinking
it
to
in
do.
the training, that it's like the cloud, like the
Yeah,
iCloud.
the iCloud. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I loved
And I
that.
always say to people, well, where do you think they got the iCloud from? It was brought in. The knowledge
Yeah.
wasn't born in this world. The knowledge
Mhm.
was brought in from another world, as with all new things that are coming, poetry, art, technology, anything.
Mhm.
It is brought down. It's accessed or
Yeah.
whatever. And
I
that's
think
that's
that
that's
the iPhone, I had said this a while back and it just came out of me, but like the iPhone is like, a very, very, very small percentage of what actually we're capable of in
absolutely
our brain. And so we're thinking like, oh,
100%.
wow, look at this. But if we
Yes.
stepped away,
Yeah.
we actually would have access to all of that. We're still operating in the
And
masculine. Prove it
when
to
you
me. Let me have it
yeah,
tangible.
and that's I hope. Well, I know. I don't hope. I know that's changing anyway. The old goddess is coming back, or the new goddess, Bridget's coming back. The spring goddess. She's just
I
going to
love it.
burst and show us all the light, and then we'll just love it. She does it
Yeah.
every year. She reminds us she's coming back. Every year it's spring, she's coming back.
Here I am. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
But
you
you are
know,
the goddess, Jenny. You are the beautiful goddess.
oh, thank you. I have a couple
You're
names from you.
beautiful
Miss
goddess.
Hollywood, Miss
Miss Hollywood.
Colorado.
I love Miss Colorado. I love Miss Hollywood. Yeah. But it's all the different aspects of Jen. As I
Now I'm
say,
gonna be a bunny. I have a Hollywood
you're
feature.
gonna
I'm
be
gonna be a
Flopsy
bunny.
Flopsy Brabbit,
Let's just not say Hollywood bunny.
a Holly bunny. Yeah, Holly bunny. That's a great thing. But no,
Oh,
it's such a joy. It really is a joy to share moments like this where it's so easy.
it is easy.
It's just easy, isn't it? How it
Yeah.
should be.
Well, and so share really quick. I know, so I did a training that is open to all. I mean, we have to bypass Jackie, but
Mm.
get approval by Jackie. But tell me about what's coming up. What I know you're coming back to the States at some point, any Zoom
Yeah.
things. How do people work with you or have access to you?
I mean, we will release more Zoom teachings because Zoom's become a wonderful tool around the world. It means I can work with people in Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, all the places. So that's fantastic. So we'll definitely, we've got some new mentorship courses coming up with Zoom. If people look on Facebook or my new website, which is going to be launched, GordonSmithMedium.com, they'll find courses. I will be back in the US in 2024, I think it is. I'll be doing Phoenix again with Helping Parents Heal, where we're going. James Van Prague and I are going to be doing that, and then James and I are going to do a little tour on the West Coast. So we haven't got all the dates yet, but we'll probably do Hollywood. You should be there in a Hollywood gown and holding an Oscar. Um, and yeah, and do you know what? I've got so many online things. I do a massive online teaching for a Swiss company called Unity, and they're incredible. They're just beautiful people. You should work with them one day, Jen. You will. They're beautiful. Best people to work with. They're incredibly sensitive and kind and loving, and you would love them. So yeah,
Wonderful.
there's just so much going on. I've just been offered a TV show, which if I do it, I'll do it with great joy and fun and try and educate people. And it's about getting rid of all the bad ideas of attachments and
Yes.
nonsense. So I
Yes.
want people to give up the ghost. It's time to stop it. Give up the ghost. Stop this haunting. There's no such thing as haunted houses, only haunted people. And
Yeah.
I tell people that, leave a house alone. Stop haunting it.
Oh, I love it.
So there you are, my darling. I will say this to you though. I drink, therefore I am.
As the glass finishes, the last sip and
And that was
finishes
it.
now.
Yes, the last sip. Perfectly timed.
So I want to let you guys all know I have a link that I'm going to share, and it's also on my website for you to join Gordon's mailing list. So you will have access to everything that he does via that mailing list that I will share with his lovely Jackie, who does all of his bookings and helps him with. She's your bouncer, your
Yeah.
manager,
Well, that she's become that. Yeah, yeah.
and she is just such a
She's actually
beautiful woman.
a good
So,
friend and makes a great cocktail.
oh gosh, and just is fabulous to be around.
Mm.
But I'm going to leave it in the show notes here. So fill it out, and all it is just you will be on Gordon's mailing list. But also within that, he did sign 2 books, and now I should have them right in front of me, but I don't. But I bought 4 of them. 2 of them are signed, and the 2 that are signed are for 2 winners out of those people who enter their mailing addresses. I feel like I'm like really struggling to say this, but the point is fill it out, get on Gordon's mailing list. You may win a free book, but you will win the opportunity to be able to know what's going on with him. And I highly recommend it, whether it's just watching him work on stage, beautiful, beautiful thing to witness, or going over to England and doing his training like I did. I think that's all. I
Fantastic.
struggle when I get to the business part. Well, let's just keep
I'm the
talking about
same.
spirit.
I'm the same.
Okay, well, Gordon, I love you. I adore you.
I love you, darling. And we will talk and we will share a cocktail or a glass of bubbles. I'm a red wine guy. I'm actually now going to go off and have a nice glass of Chateau Margaux.
Oh,
My favorite.
beautiful. All right. Well, cheers to you. Happy Friday, and we will talk soon.
Happy Friday and cheers, everybody. I really wish you all joy and happiness. God bless. God is bless.